Hello and welcome back to Saints Squad. I'm your host Dylan Sanders of Saints Wire, and much like the umpires in this weekend's College World Series, I will kick John or Ross out if they annoy me too bad.
John Hendricks, New Orleans football, repping with my homie Lance over here. I'm Spartacus.
Ross Jackson, Locked On at Saints Podcast, and I think we might finally see Alvin Kamara's first 1,000-yard rushing season, but don't tell anybody.
It's the Saints Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything New Orleans Saints, every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from down in the Big Easy, the way only Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Saints Squad show, starting now.
Howdy, Houdat Nation. Welcome back to the Saints Squad, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making us your first listen every Monday and Thursday. We have a unique group of experts here ready to bring you a fun and informative show on everything New Orleans Saints. Today, we're going to be diving into Chase Young's season preview. The Saints were left out of an NFL top 100 players. Does that make sense? Is that right? Who do we think should be in? The Saints signed a couple of UFL players. Maybe they'll make the roster. Maybe they won't. What does that mean? And then we're going to start off today by going over what we believe to be the most improved position group on the team. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. I've got good news and I've got bad news, Ross and John.
All right.
The good news, Lance is perfectly fine from his cobra bite. He's recovered.
Put him
he's
on
back.
a milk
He's
carton.
Good.
But the problem is, whenever you get healthy, who wants to call and check on you? Grandma.
Oh,
so he's
right.
back on the
Right. Yeah.
he's back on the phone with grandma. And I suppose the conversation will be over by Thursday.
That's what I'm hearing. Yes, that's what I've heard.
That's what I'm hearing. The conversation, Lance will be off the phone and back on here Thursday.
Got to get his permission slip.
Until then, let's get started with the most improved position group on the team. Now, let's kick it off with Ross.
Yeah, look, I'm going to be honest. I don't know that there are a lot of places where this team improved from 2024 to 2025. And so I'm looking at it relative to that, right? Not like relative to other teams in the way that they might improve. And so I'm going to go with the running back position. And the reason why I'm going with running back is because I do believe that the addition of Devin Neal was a very good addition. I do believe he was a very good draft pick. I do believe that he was somebody that was drafted in the 6th round, but was a 3rd or 4th round talent. So that's the way that I look at that. So I think that that's a big one. I'm taking into account an idea that they might be healthier at the position. And so Ted Rath kind of helps this too. And so if you can get a healthy Kendre Miller, if you can keep Alvin Kamara on the field, then I think that there's opportunity for improvement there. I also like the signing of Cam Akers. The Saints really like the signing of Cam Akers too. And the addition of Velus Jones Jr. just as options going into what could be the 2025 New Orleans Saints roster. And so I'm going to go with running back because I do believe that there was improvement there. And relative to the other positions on the field, it might be one of the positions, not the only one, but one of the positions where they might have made the biggest changes from 2024 to 2025 because of their new additions.
I like that. That's not where I thought you were going to go. Oh, that's not where I thought any of us were going to go. But I like it. I like the pick because it's not one that had a bunch of splashy moves done. But Devin Neal is a guy that if you look into him for more than 1 second, you get excited about what he could bring to an offense. Cam Akers has that name excitement from a couple of years ago. And of course, AK is AK. So I like that. And I like the idea that it could really just be an improvement. You're not replacing the starter, but it can be such an improvement based just off of scheme and fit with this team and the coach.
Also true. Yep.
Yeah, I think there's some sneaky pieces there. I mean, you talked about, Velus Jones Jr. I mean, a guy that was playing wide receiver. He also doubles in the return game as well. Again, you throw in Devin Neal. I think we're going to see a lot more Devin Neal come to play when it comes to training camp. And of course, Kendre Miller is kind of the mystery, right? It's kind of the wild card here, but I'm excited about Marcus Yarns. I'm excited about the concept of what Cam Akers can bring to the table. I mean, and of course, we know that the team's probably not going to be done here. I think for running back room, obviously you're probably saying that there's a third and fourth spot that are open on the team right now. Could be more, could be less. And of course your practice squad priority. And so again, it depends on really for me, where does Kellen Moore see his, I don't want to say prototype, but what is his mold? What does he want out of the running back position? Does he want the Saquon Barkley guy and then a change of pace guy, or does he want two of the same guys? And so I think Alvin Kamara distinctly fits a specific type of mold for Kellen Moore. And then after that, I guess we'll see. And, I long for the days where we see the Saints be more of a screen team, be more effective inside running. There's a whole bunch of things that I would love to see out of Kellen Moore in the running back room. But look, I do believe that compared to last year, Jamal Williams had some struggles, obviously, in this off. I don't know that fit was the smartest one, right? Like, I just think that the way the Saints offensive attack approached it this year, that wasn't really a benefit for Jamal Williams. And then you tried with Jordan Mims and, some of the guys that from last year just aren't here. So I like that pick.
Yeah. And I do think too, Dylan mentioned the scheme change. I think that the scheme change helps to make Alvin Kamara even better too. And so I think there's an improvement that comes from not necessarily the personnel of the room, but the way that the players will be utilized. I trust Kellen Moore a bit more in the run game than I trusted Clint Kubiak in the run game after we saw what Clint Kubiak's kind of, distribution of the run was and what that turned out to be and how that system what that system became over time and everything like that. And so I meant what I said as we opened up too, because I don't want to lose this thread, that I think we could very well see Alvin Kamara's first 1,000-yard rushing season. We should have seen it last year, but he had the injury where he, stretched out to catch that pass from Cedric Wilson Jr. and it kind of kept him off the field for the rest of the year. Yeah. But we might finally see that first 1,000-yard rushing season for Alvin Kamara, assuming that he's able to stay healthy. And so I think that's included in my assessment of improvement, that we might see an even more productive Alvin Kamara this year because of the diversity or the eclecticism of Kellen Moore's run game.
Big word, Ross.
Big word, Ross out here.
Yeah. I wonder if he can get his get to 2,000 total.
Yeah, like total.
I don't know if he's going to, but that's going to be fascinating to me because I know he's going to be using the receiving department. But I mean, think about some of the backs that were able to eclipse that, like Marshall Faulk. If he can get to any type of semblance of that, I think the Saints are in a really good spot.
Yeah. By the way, 49 screen attempts for Jalen Hurts last year. It's okay.
Not bad.
Not terrible.
Feels like 45 more than the Saints did last year.
That's about how many texts I got whenever the Coastal Carolina coach got ejected. It was like, what just happened?
What a
John.
Yeah.
John, what is your most improved position group on the team right now?
All right, I'm going to go crazy, y'all. And maybe crazy some, but for me, I'm going to take the offensive line. Three big additions here. Kelvin Banks obviously being the first.
Yep.
Dylan Radins being the second. Will Clapp being the third. Those three additions alone, especially with Banks going over to left tackle, moving Trevor Penning inside to guard. We'll see how that works out. But I think this offensive line, again, health is going to be a big deal. But this offensive line, coupled with the addition of Brendan Nugent, because I'm going to be that guy and pick a coach too, to say that's another reason why they're the most improved group. I feel like this group, and you could say the same thing running back in Joel Thomas. I think that's
why I slapped myself in the head. I could have had a V8.
Could have had a V8. But I just see the potential there. And look, last year, they kind of had their starting five, and then it was, we might have Lucas Patrick here and Nick Saldiveri. You brought in Oli Udo as well, and also who the one is, am I forgetting, Ross? The other one that was in the scheme with him, Patrick Udo. Shane Lemieux. Shane Lemieux. Yeah. So there was familiarity. So I just feel like, and again, no knock on those guys, but I just feel like the depth from last year to this year is exponentially better by getting guys like Will Clapp, who can play center, he can play guard, a Dylan Radins who can play extremely well at left guard and is going to be a guy that could be there and fill in that spot. Like, he's going to be chomping at the bit if Trevor Penning just can't get it. But putting left tackle, rookie Kelvin Banks, and then right tackle Taliesin Fuanga, and then you got Eric McCoy. The big question marks are in the interior. Is Cesar Ruiz going to play better? I think he can. I think it's going to be better for this scheme. I actually think putting Taliesin Fuanga at right tackle is going to help Cesar Ruiz some in some aspects. Just like, Taliesin, with Kelvin Banks Jr., I think putting him on an island, he's going to be just fine. So for me, I like where the offensive line is going. You still have Nick Saldiveri. You still have Landon Young. You still have some very interesting undrafted rookie free agents. You got Kyle Hergel back in the mix. Torricelli Simpkins is a guy that I keep an eye on. Easton Kilty is another one. And so, again, not really household names, undrafted rookies, but they have those fines. Josiah Zerum is another one's coming back. They have Josh Ball, who's been in the Kellen Moore system. So I do like the makeup of this offensive line. Will it work? I don't know. I'm not going to sit here, but I do feel better about maybe the execution from this offensive line with the new coaching staff. And let's not forget, Brendan Nugent is also part of scheming the offensive playbook with Doug Nussmeier and also Kellen Moore. So there is some advantages there for him.
Yeah. I almost went with the offensive line. And I think that is maybe the right pick. Just because I like that group and I like what they've done and I like how it's come together. I think really unlocking the potential of Trevor Penning at left guard, it's always something that has been thrown around. But the idea of actually doing it and seeing him get used to it and it not being a complete disaster from second one, like it seemed his time at right tackle did. I think it's a positive sign, and I think that really could tie this team together. I mean, it's something, they've spent the last 3 first-round picks on the offensive line. It has to get better at some point, right?
There's the trajectory in the right direction because, I mean, again, Fuanga was a huge pick. I think Banks is going to be an excellent pick. So, again, you can build off that, get 2 of the 3. I mean, they'll get it, hopefully.
Yeah, right. No, but John, I think the other thing that I like about that pick too is one of the big reasons why the Saints offensive line didn't perform last year is because of the drop off from starter to depth. They all, there's all that talk all the time about how there's not going to be any drop off between us. Yes, there is. There's always drop off. There's a reason. Yeah, there's a reason why there are starters, and there's a reason why there are people that are not starters, right? And so there's always going to be drop off, but the drop off was huge last year, and so to the point to where they were signing guys and playing them, a week or 2 later, right? Connor McGovern, right? And
and he was one of the best guys, and it's
right. And so I think now, you have somebody in Will Clapp that can be a backup center, which I don't feel like the Saints have had a dedicated backup center since the Sean Payton days. During the Sean Payton days, they didn't have a dedicated backup center. They have a point now to where, we saw it the other day in minicamp when OTAs. When Cesar Ruiz wasn't participating in the last day of OTAs, they didn't move one player from this tackle spot to that guard spot and then plug in a new tackle over in that former tackle spot. They just put Dylan Radin at right guard. It was nice and easy. It was nice and simple. And so, I think that the part of the reason why this group is most improved is because of the investment at quality depth, if that makes sense, in addition to, trying to bolster the starting 5.
Yep.
And I'm really glad you brought up Easton Kilty, by the way.
Yeah.
Shout out. I think that I'm going to go on record. We're the only Saints podcast to bring up Easton Kilty since Monday. Since Monday started.
All right, sure. Yeah, sure.
Since Monday started, we're the first ones to bring up Easton Kilty.
7.5 hours, but we got there.
Right.
Hey, we did it. Number 1, baby. I'm gonna go with the safety room. I think the safety room is the most improved part of this roster. I mean, I like the offensive line. I like the running back room, but I think the only position group I look at right now on this roster, and I'm like, I feel confident about them going into year 1 is the safeties. Going into this year is the safeties. I don't have really any questions. I think it's going to be Justin Reed and Tyrann Mathieu leading things off, and then you have Jonas Sanker developing, getting used to the game, getting up to speed as a tackler. You have JT Gray, who's been around for a while. You have Jordan Howden, who didn't have the best of years last year, but I think has shown potential really early in his career. And I think with less responsibility and less pressure now the table is set for him to take a step back forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that this is the most complete group on the team right now, and that's why I think it's the most improved.
I like that.
I would say, for Jordan Howden, tough. When he came in rookie, he had a shoulder injury. He had to get shoulder surgery in the offseason. This last season, he had the same thing. He had the opposite shoulder that had messed up, and he had to get shoulder surgery. But he should be 100 now. And so I look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do. Interestingly enough, I know we don't talk about special teams on this show. Sarcastically,
we never do that.
John said. But look, he was playing a lot of personal protector. We don't have Taysom. There's no Jonathan Abram there. There was no Jordan Mims. So Jordan Howden would probably be the personal protector at that point. And I'm not saying that's just to say, oh well, the safety guy is going to make this impact. But I do believe that between that, he's going to have a role carved out for him, and he's also going to see some extensive time. I would expect him to be the extra back and dime situations, probably to start off. Maybe Sanker can kind of look at taking some of that responsibility eventually, but I still think Howden, they got to use him the right way. That's all I could say. I really love Justin Reed. I love Sanker. I love the idea of Tyrann Mathieu. JT Gray, if he's playing safety, no offense, that's everything has gone wrong, right? And again, JT Gray can play safety, but that's not really where you want to use JT Gray. But if they can use Howden the right way, which I feel like they can get there. I like the change over to Terry Joseph. Again, I love Marcus Robertson and Joe Woods. M-Rob was one of one, right? But I just feel like the way that they've shifted this coaching scheme will better utilize some of these players and have more of a definitive role. Like Alante just being said, do this, do that, do this, do that. And it's like, just tell me what I need to do and I'll go do it. You know what I mean?
Let me do a thing.
A thing. So I like the safety group. I do. I feel like it's definitely better, quote unquote, than what it has been.
Guys, I just want to say the fact that we've brought up Easton Kilty, personal protector, and Velas Jones before 8 a.m. is why I love us so much.
Wow.
And I think that we are the best podcast in the market. No, they don't make them like us always. They don't make them like us always.
You reach deep into the bag, guys. You got to.
In about 30 seconds, I'm going to
say, who are these guys?
It's us. We're the guys that brought up Velas Jones and Easton Kilty before your Keurig got finished. And I'm about to say, I'm about to say another one of my favorite things in the world in about 30 seconds. You'll see what it is. But we're going to be right back. When we come back, we're going to jump into some small signings the Saints made, and look at the potential of some UFL guys joining the roster.
Woo!
Yee.
Summer sports are in full swing. And whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make the game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. One of the most fun races I'm following right now in the MLB is the AL home run leaders. Aaron Judge is currently at plus 110 with Cal Big Dumper Raleigh close behind at plus 125. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I know I'm betting on Big Dumper. Welcome back.
What an unfortunate nickname, man.
Hey,
what you been doing?
If you've ever watched Cal Raleigh taking that bet, you know why he's called Big Dumper.
I thought you said Ben Dumper, not Big Dumper, but either way, it's horrible.
Either way.
No, it's Big Dumper. Let's get back to the NFL with the Saints. They signed up a couple of UFL players.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to see if we think any of them have a chance at making the roster. They added tight end Seth Green, quarterback Jaden Price, and offensive tackle Barry Wesley. John, introduce any of those guys you like that you know about, or you think couldn't make the roster?
Yeah, well, I like Seth Green from Family Guy. No, I'm just kidding. That's horrible. I mean, I had to. This is easy, but Seth Green, the tight end from Arlington, signed with the Texans. What was it, 2022, as an undrafted rookie free agent? And so, look, I think, and then he also was with the Cowboys practice squad in October that same year. And so, again, I think the competition is kind of still wide open at tight end. And so, a guy like Seth Green, I like Jack Stahl. That's another one you're not going to hear a lot on these podcasts on Monday mornings. Is Jack Stahl hype train. So Juwan and Jack Stahl are probably the only two definites I think right now at the tight end room, because Foster's coming off an injury, right? I think he'll be fine when it comes to training camp, but again, it won't surprise me if he starts on PUP either. And you got to have some of these other guys like Dallin Holker, Michael Jacobson, Trayton Welsh, another one that you could look at. And so look, Seth Green has an opportunity, right? And again, sometimes you get these guys from the UFL. That's how they got Kevin Austin Jr. last year. And so sometimes it can work out. Maybe they need to take a little bit of a learning curve. Samson Nakua was a late add in the process. And, everybody was convinced he was going to make the roster or something in practice squad. And I mean, he looked pretty good for sure. And had that awesome moment in preseason. But for me, I think that, Seth Green is probably one of the ones I'd look at. And then Barry Wesley, UFL, the offensive lineman, again, offensive line competition, probably a little bit more tense than a little bit more stiff this year, And so can he come in and latch on? Because again, you remember what Lance had said in this process is when you come in June or nearly July, you're behind the 8 ball, right? I get these guys have been playing, but you got to learn the playbook. You've got to learn the language. You got to learn all these different things. And so can they make an impact? It's possible, but I think it's going to be, can you do it early enough to stick on the roster to be able to hang around? And so I think that's going to be the big question mark for me. But I think Seth Green's probably one of the ones to keep an eye on.
I like that. Yeah. I think the thing that's so interesting about him too is that he's a former quarterback / wildcat quarterback that turned to a wide receiver, had more rushing yards at Minnesota than he had, receiving yards, everything like that. And so do I think that he's going to come in and be Taysom Hill? No, that's not what I'm saying. No. But I mean, it is interesting, his background in terms of, whether you want to look at it from an athleticism standpoint or a diversity, a versatility standpoint, whatever it might be, there's a lot of those kind of interesting ways that he could potentially contribute, I guess.
Yeah, named Sportsman of the Year in the UFL as well. So that's a good thing. Good core, like a program guy, right? I mean, you talk about that. I mean, I know he's got a long ways to go, but that's a good flex to have when you come from the UFL. I'd like to see more developmental stuff in the NFL, and I think UFL is a part of it. But these guys need to go somewhere because there's not a lot of these jobs out there, and so somebody like him to be able to go from the UFL or start in the NFL, go to the UFL, and then be back in the NFL, that's a good thing. That's a good story.
As a guy to maybe make the practice squad at least, I'll give a shout out to Jaden Price. That is a real lunch pail, first one in, last one out.
I like that.
Hard, gritty worker, which is rare to find in a cornerback. But seriously, I mean, I think the NDSU to NOLA pipeline is real. They clearly like that program. They like what they're doing. Price is a guy that he's 25. He played solid defense in college, and I think that overall he seems like a guy that could at least stick around. Because as much as you say that the competition is wide open in the tight end room, I mean, after the first couple of cornerbacks, in my eyes, there's still a ton of ways that cookie can crumble, for lack of a better word. There's, Rico Payton, Rajon Wright, Dallas Beanham, and Jaden Price. Those are guys that aren't okay, let's write them in and pin. They're going to make this team. So there's a whole training camp to go of someone that I think still needs to, grab, the last couple of position group roster spots by the horns. And, maybe that could be Jaden Price. They clearly want to get more bodies in that room. So I think he has a shot. Ross,
Yeah.
who did you think?
Well, I was going to say on Jaden Price real quick, also led the UFL in pass deflections last year and passes broken up with 13.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also number 2, tied for number 2, I believe it was. No, he was number 2 in punt return yards, 197, I think it was, everything. And so he's got, and he was top 10 in kick return yards. And so he has sort of these other kind of ways to potentially make a roster and, all these other things, right? Like there are the guys that show up and can do one thing. There are guys that can show up and do all the things like Ugo Amadi, for instance, and then that gets you on a roster, And so you add in all that. He's got good speed. He's a solid tackler. You get him, punt cover reps and stuff like that. See what he can do in that area. And he's got a lot of routes to making a practice squad, And so I think that that's really valuable. Barry Wesley is the only one left on the list at this point that we haven't talked about. And I'm not averse to him as an option to potentially land like a practice squad role, if I'm being completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the NDSU pipeline. Easton Kilty is also a part of that. So guys like Easton Kilty and Barry Wesley, I could see potentially landing practice squad spots, if not more. And Wesley is interesting. Spent his time during his collegiate years playing at left tackle, right guard, I believe it was, and then even played an entire game at center for Colorado State. And so he's kind of done it all. When he got to the UFL, he still played multiple different positions at each tackle spot and at the guard spot. I think he only allowed 2 sacks and like 11 total pressures or something like that over with the UFL. So he was an absolute standout. Actually, all 3 of these guys were standouts. And so while I don't think that means that you can write them down for, 53-man roster spots just yet, I do think that these are guys that do have the talent to land a practice squad spot and all these other things. And I would absolutely include Barry Wesley in that. And the trajectory that John described of these guys making it into the NFL, it's true for all 3 of them, made it into the NFL at some point. Price went to the Falcons as an undrafted free agent. Barry Wesley eventually went to the Falcons at one point, and then they go to the UFL, and then they come back to the NFL. Like all of them having that trajectory, I think means something. And the Saints are, have shown since 2020, they've invested in 13 different players in terms of preseason stuff, not like in-season signings, but 13 different players in those spring leagues, AAF, XFL, USFL, UFL. And so, these have been guys that have stuck around too. Everybody remembers the hype of Jake Lampman. Everybody remembers, Jontre Kirkland. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even Jack Heflin. Yeah. Jack Heflin stuck around for 2 years? Because he got a future reserve. He got a reserve future deal and everything. And so like we've seen the Saints do this. Remember Dietrich Nichols when they signed him years ago? Like there were a lot of these guys that they continue to bring in. And they get worthy shots when they arrive in New Orleans. That's a credit to the scouting department, I think.
Yeah, and also I would just say this off topic, but shout out to Yasir Durant for winning a UFL championship. People might remember him in the Saints. He was one of the coolest dudes in the locker room. I remember he was just having a baby not that long ago, and so
that's cool.
Again, he's probably going to get another opportunity in the NFL again. But shout out to him. He's a good dude.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
I just want to give us another pat on the back for talking about the most amount of players that nobody has either ever heard of or remembered.
Yeah.
To start a 30 for the first 30 minutes of all time.
These are the players that Saints fans are like, who when they're playing week 10 of the year, and they're like,
that's the thing, man.
Pay attention to your pods.
Sometimes these are players that crack 53-man rosters, and it's really exciting. They're great stories. Other times they're the players that teams desperately turn to when there's attrition on the roster, and they go to sign somebody that they've worked with. And so these guys are absolutely names to remember because they might not make the practice squad. They might not make the week 1 roster, but week 12, your team might be calling them up. You know what I mean? And so it's good to
diversify your pods.
Diversify your pods.
shout out to Euros for the Jontre Kirkland poll. He gave one of my favorite press conference answers of all time. That was during the LSU bowl game where they had him play quarterback.
Oh, that's right.
He threw for 3 passing touchdowns or whatever. The team had 30 or maybe 30 scholarship players or something, something crazy like that.
Jeez,
and then
at least 30.
I asked him after the game, like, what would it take for y'all to not play this game? And Jontre said, he was like, if there are 11 LSU Tigers on the field, on the roster, 11 Tigers will take the field. And I was like, oh, that's just the greatest answer of that's the greatest answer of all time. Like, it was so cool. Well, whenever we come back, we're gonna go from Saints players, introduce you to Saints players. We're gonna talk about the Saints players you know but were disrespected by not getting put in the NFL Top 100. CBS Sports Pete Prisco released an NFL Top 100 players entering the 2025 season. There are some familiar names, like Zach Bond is on the list, but there were no New Orleans Saints players included on the list. I know that this isn't a very deep team, but I feel like there's still some solid players on the team. I feel like they could have gotten a nod at least somewhere. So we're going to talk about who we think on this team could have made or should have made this top 100 list. Ross, why don't you kick us off?
I really want to change who I wanted to go for, because I realized that, like,
you're allowed to do that.
One of the best players at their position is still playing for the New Orleans Saints and is not on the list, and it's center Eric McCoy.
Ooh.
And I get that he dealt with injury last year, but this isn't the top 100 players from 2024. This is the top 100 players, right? And so when we think about players that should be on this list, you look at who are the players that are some of the best in the league at their position. And Eric McCoy is absolutely one of the best centers in the NFL. Is it a sexy position to talk about? No. It's a position to where when you don't talk about it, you know they're doing a good job, like all these other things. But like, Eric McCoy is one of the best in the league at that position. And so I know that sometimes top 100s get bogged down by quarterbacks and wide receivers and running backs and maybe edge rushers. And then kind of these other positions don't get the recognition. And so maybe that's what it is, that he plays offensive line. Offensive line is not a sexy position to put in your top 100. And so you tend to leave those off. But I think it's a little absurd to me that Eric McCoy would not be considered a top 100 player. To me, he's the best player on this team's roster. And I think that he is, maybe outside of a couple of people, maybe people might have an argument about that, but I think he's the best player on this roster. And I think he should have been a top 100 guy. I think Eric McCoy was missing off the list.
I'm just looking to see, I don't know who the highest rated, or if I'm looking to see if there was another center that made the list. Tyler Linderbaum, Quinn Miners. Quinn Miners made it at 51. That's high for Quinn Miners if Eric McCoy is not on the list.
Yeah,
I think Creed Humphrey was on there.
Like we all loved whenever Quinn Miners was rocking the cutoff shirt at the Senior Bowl, but has that aura carried him to being a near top 50 player before Eric McCoy? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
the one that's most egregious to me is no Eric McCoy.
I like that. I'll follow, because I think I have a similar reasoning or thought process behind my pick as yours, Ross. And I'm going to go with Demario Davis, linebacker. I think for me, that is a guy that if he has not yet proven or shown that he has fallen off a cliff on the field, you can't not consider him one of the best players at the position. He's one of the most valuable players on the field. He's one of the best, one of the most talented, one of the smartest, and just one of the most reliable players on the field. And I just don't see how you don't include Demario Davis as a top 100 player still. He's incredible. He's, last year he was 35, 36. Like, what does he go? What does he do? He goes out, sets a career high in tackles. He wasn't as effective as a pass rusher last year. I don't think they asked him to do that as much. But I think that he is still very much a commander in the middle of the field, a general game manager. And nothing on the field has shown me that I'm like, wow, he is nothing like the player that he used to be. And so in my eyes, I think he deserves to be in that top 100.
Yeah. I mean, Demario is like when I think about like who is the best player on this team, for me, it's a conversation between Eric McCoy and Demario Davis. Like those are the two names that immediately come to mind.
Yeah. And somebody I was looking.
I mean, I give AK probably a shout out too.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I was looking. The only off-ball linebackers to be included on the list were Fred Warner, Zach Bond, Roquan Smith, and Bobby Wagner. I think that Demario is in that group of players. He's not. I don't think he's in a separate tier. I mean, I think Fred Warner's in a tier of his own, and then you have the other best off-ball linebackers.
I would put. I mean, I guess Zach Bond's like 1 year of really, 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 really good football, defensive player of the year. Kind of probably puts him in a little bit of a separate tier too, and everything. But I understand. I would certainly put Demario in the Bobby Wagner conversation. You know what I mean? Like he would be in that area, if not above that. You know, and so I would have to agree. Like this is a dude that since he showed up in New Orleans has had 100 tackles every year, just had career highs in sacks not that long ago. All these other things, continues to be able to be available and on the field. Like just kind of checks every box and I get that he was a part of a defense that was not a very good defense. And so that probably drags him down. Like people talk about how like the top 100 lists have a lot to do with like wins and production of the team and team success and things like that. I don't think that's incorrect. I think that impacts the way that people look at individual players and everything like that. But it should be about the individual player. And I think if you're talking about guys like Demario Davis and other guys that we'll bring up during the segment, like I think there are those players that are top 100 players in the NFL, even though the team isn't successful. Like I don't think that those two things are mutually exclusive.
Yeah. And Demario's one of three. Oh, I'm sorry, Dylan.
No,
oh no, you're good. You go ahead.
You got numbers.
I was say he was one of three Saints defenders that logged over 1,000 snaps, and Demario played the most defense for the Saints, and it was 92% of the snaps. So again, you don't for guys like him and Tyron who are quote unquote old, you know, that's pretty impressive for them to still be able to play that way and be effective and do the things they do when you look at the grand scheme of things.
If Mike Evans and Jalen Ramsey can still make this list, then Demario Davis can still make this list. John, I saved you for last because I think that you have the most fun and the most interesting top 100 pick.
That's
let's hear it.
That's a thing. Yeah. You know, they're gonna think that I really need to take my medicine, but I put Tali Fuanga on there. Look, he played all 17 games, 9% of the offensive snaps, to 1,071 to be specific, right behind Trevor Penning, who did 99% of the offensive snaps. But look, you don't go in, you draft somebody who is a first round pick, offensive lineman, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to work, right? And you move him from his right tackle position to left tackle position. And he does fantastic for you. I mean, it was a thing where he had the job from day one, right? And I just really feel like Tali Fuanga, and I'm trying to remember the other one that we talked about. It was Fuanga and
Troy Fautanu
was the other one.
Olu Fashanu,
Fashanu and Fuetano. I think Fuanga had the better season out of all of them, right? I just feel like when you look at the rookies and things that you look at, I know offensive linemen aren't going to get a lot of love, right? But I think the Saints hit on this pick with authority that Fuanga, now that you're going to put him back in his natural position, right tackle, if you will, it's going to only help him in some aspects. And he doesn't care. He's like, okay, that's literally what they told him. Is like, you're going to go back to right tackle. Okay. That's Tali. And he likes pineapple on pizza. I'll just say that.
Also,
so he also gets extra bonus points for that. But no, I just think
I disagree with his take that Chips Ahoy are better than Oreos, though.
No, I agree there.
I'm an Oreo guy.
Yeah, I'm definitely Oreo as well. So, but team Oreo. But no, I just really feel like Fuanga is a guy that if you were to put together a best team or best under 25, if you will, or up and coming, Fuanga is definitely on that list. Top 100. I just think that when it's all said and done, if the Saints can figure out this offensive line thing, they can figure out this offense a little bit. Like Fuanga, if you don't have him, your offensive line is kind of shot last year. I mean, like it's even worse than what it is. But Iron Man, quote unquote, if you will, and just somebody I think that had played a lot better than what the grades will tell you. You got to look at the whole picture. And I think Fuanga is one of those that held his own and then some. And he's not like he had, little, play school style pass rush players on the opposite side. I mean, he went up against some of the best, and I think he did really well.
Yeah. Ross, what do you think about that? Do you think that Fuanga's done enough, or what? Can he take a step this year to be a top 100 player?
Yeah, I think he can continue to take a step too. I think that the step is doing everything that John just described again. Like that's really all that it is. Like the only thing that he has left to really prove is longevity or consistency, like whichever one you want to highlight. And I think that like you do that as a guy like Taliesin Fuanga, who's moving back to his initial position, his collegiate position, and everything like that. You have a real opportunity to really bolster your status across the NFL. It's Tristan Wirfs like, you know what I mean? And so I think that like that type of play, all he really has to do is repeat it. And if he can repeat it, then I think that he's absolutely in that conversation. If he's not already in that conversation, like I'll give a little bit of a spoiler here, but we're doing a top 100 at Locked On. And as a part of it, we, submitted, each of the local hosts submitted like 5 to 10, players that were the top 5 to 10 players on the roster. And Taliesin Fuanga was early on my list as one of the best players on the roster. And so like, I think very highly of him. I think the NFL should think very highly of him. He plays a premier position at tackle. He is somebody that is constantly in focus. He was a top 15 selection. He was playing one of the three most important positions in football during his rookie year without any experience ever playing that position up until rookie minicamp. And he was awesome outside of like one Denver Broncos game and everything where everybody on the offensive line struggled in that game.
Oh, yeah.
And so I really do think that Taliesin Fuanga is in or near that conversation at this point already. But I think if you're looking for him to take a step forward, it's really just about proving that he can do it again, that it's repeatable.
This goes back to a little of something we were talking about earlier, but do you think what I really think could be the difference between Taliesin Fuanga making the 2026 list and not? It's how many games the Saints win. If the Saints go on a win streak, I think that like offensive linemen, it's already hard enough for them to get any name recognition in the NFL.
Right.
That to do it on a losing team that nobody's watching is near impossible. So I think that the Saints have to win and win big for him to get that recognition. But I like the pick, and I like the confidence in him to be that guy because the Saints desperately need him to be.
Yeah. I bet he makes Baldy's top 100.
Oh, yes.
Well, because
Baldy needs in power.
Baldy knows ball.
Yeah. What's funny is I remember, I'm not going to blast the outlet, but I remember seeing a redraft of the first round and they left Taliesin Fuanga off the first round. I'm like, y'all did not watch a game. Y'all just did not do it. Y'all didn't even try. Like, not even a Bart Simpson, at least you tried. No, you didn't try at all.
Right.
Like, dang, dude. Like, offensive linemen need love.
Do you want to hear the 3 Saints that got a shout on last year's, the 2024 top 100? Just as
let's see if we can.
As a comparison.
Oh yeah.
Because
I think there's 2 fringe guys that we didn't mention.
Olave and Kamara would probably be my top 2 figure that I would throw out offhand.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's 2 that made it and 1 that was in the honorable mentions.
Oh, okay. I'll go. Olave and AK are ones, and then I imagine Lattimore was somewhere in there.
Yeah, Lattimore.
None of those names were
really.
Was it Chase Young then?
No, keep going. It was Demario Davis
gosh.
and Tyrann Mathieu were the 2 top 100 Saints players last year, and then the honorable mention was Paulson Adebo.
Nice.
Yeah, Debo would have been good.
Nice.
So yeah,
that's a ball knowing pick right there. I like that.
So all that says to me is that he really hated what Demario Davis did last year, because he dropped from 50 to out of the list completely. I maybe he regressed a little bit, but not that much.
Not Pete Prisco.
Well, when we come back, we're gonna be wrapping it up with starting at beef. Wrapping up with a season preview for Chase Young. Ooh. Wrap it up for us today.
I didn't
Wrap
expect
it
the
up, B.
reciprocal. I didn't expect the reciprocal ooh.
Wrapping it up for us today. Let's continue on with our season preview series and go over with one of the more fun players I think we're going to talk about this entire time. Chase Young, a pass rusher that really does sometimes make me go, ooh.
There you go.
Yeah. John, what do you think of Chase Young entering this year? What does he need to do? Are you excited? All that jazz.
Yeah, I mean, finish plays. That's the number one thing, right? 21 quarterback hits. He played all 17 games. That's the first time in his career he's played all 17 games, or for all the whole entire season. 5.5 sacks. I think for Chase Young, look, if the Saints don't re-sign Chase Young, their pass rush just doesn't look as good on paper than what it was, right? And I don't know if it'll change their trajectory. I think they got to get a pass rusher in next year's draft for sure. Not that we're jumping ahead totally, but look, getting Chase Young liked his time here in New Orleans. I actually loved his time. I mean, he fit in well here. We saw the possibilities early on in training camp. I mean, the first couple of days of training camp, he was like unblockable. Like, I mean, this dude was insanely blowing up plays. And look, again, training camp is training camp, but I think some of the, I don't want to say struggles, but some of the things could be attributed to a lot of things. And I think Chase Young being put right from the start, and since that they figured out what the injury was for him, got the correction on him, and then he was able to play and do, what he was able to do. Again, I think some of the dysfunction of the defense is probably more of a byproduct for some of these players. Now, just go and change the scheme. Is that going to help them and fix everything? No, I'm not telling you that, but I do believe the potential there is for Chase Young to be better. I don't know that we can start saying he's going to be double-digit sacks or anything like that. I don't want to see him drop in coverage a lot, right? I just want him to be able to affect the quarterback. And to be honest, I think he's in a position where he's going to be able to do that better this year. And so I'm excited at the concept of Chase Young on this defense. I'm excited of Carl Granderson being that partner in crime with him. But he's kind of a mystery to me. I don't know what you're going to get out of him. And if he can play all 17 games and the defensive scheme is changed up, he can finish more plays, then he could push a double-digit sack here. But that is a possibility. I think where you want to go is for this Saints team, they need to be able to be in competitive in all four quarters. Right? But they need guys like Chase Young to be able to be the difference maker, to get the defense off the field and make big plays to give the offensive chance, if that makes sense. They need somebody that can come in and affect them. That, like, they need somebody to take over the game, right? They need to stop Chase Young's the guy, just like a Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati, right? Or whoever that may be. They need that player. Chase Young needs to be that player. That's what I want to see him become, is that player, that dude in New Orleans who, when you need a stop, when you need something, a big play, you need the defense to do their thing, Chase Young needs to be that guy.
I think it's also important to give Chase Young a shout out, because he's had the injury issues are real, and they affected a lot of the early part of his career, but he has played in 33, I want to say, straight consecutive regular season games. He missed the first game of 2023 because of a stinger he had for the preseason, but he didn't let neck surgery keep him from breaking that streak. He missed the first game of 2023 and then played the rest of that year. He played all 17 games last year. I think that he has taken a huge step forward in terms of reliability and availability, and I think that is going to be one of the biggest things. Is okay now. You made it through a full year coming from a shortened offseason where you didn't have the entire time. Now, the Saints have helped him out, and he has gone even more into rehab this year while also still being healthy. So he's going into a season 100% for the first time in a while, and it's going to be fun to watch. I'm excited, and I feel like at least he has to think that the injury issues are behind him in his head. To where now he can just go focus on being the best player he can be in the moment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He's the dude that if you ever see him in the locker room or you're up close to him, he's probably if we put together a list of like the top 3 to 5 guys I would not want to go one-on-one against, or would just toss you like a rag doll or just legit hurt you if he hits you, Chase Young's probably the top up there. Like, the dude is just insanely like fit and put together well. And so again, he would probably destroy everybody on this podcast, but destroy a lot of people. Like, he's just his strength is insane.
Yeah,
I can take Trae Young in a one-on-one game. I can take Trae Young in a one-on-one game. I cannot take Chase Young in anything. I'll be the first to admit that.
DeMar would be the other one I think of too.
Yeah, for real.
Ross, speaking of him being, physically fit, what did you think of him in training camp?
Go on.
What do you think of in training camp? What did you see for the early
mini
OTAs
camp?
and mini
Oh, so this is just a normal question. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, just a normal question.
I was
normal question.
I was giving you your runway to do whatever you were gonna do. In that situation. I thought that he was, especially early on, he looked like the best player on defense. And I think I think over the course of time, that kind of quickly became Kool-Aid McKinstry, because Kool-Aid McKinstry was just more consistently making plays every single day. But like, there were times where Chase Young was just the best dude on the field. And especially his first OTA practice, when he was like, look, the other thing that he gets a lot of, flack for, or catches a lot of flack for, is effort and not showing effort and all those other things. I've not seen that from Chase Young. Chase Young was 100% all throughout OTA, minicamp, like whatever it was that he was doing. He was, going full speed. He was getting hands on offensive linemen even when they were just doing like the walkthroughs and things like that. Like, I could tell that he like took some offensive linemen by surprise in some cases, because he was going a little bit faster. He was jawing and talking smack with Spencer Rattler at one point, like all this stuff. Like, the effort's absolutely there. You can find him chasing down players to make tackles last year, everything like that. And so I just thought that there was a lot of other signs of what Chase Young can be in this New Orleans Saints defense. And I think part of it is that he feels like he's in a defense that will maximize what it is that he does. He feels that he's in a defense that's going to actually ask him to do the things that he's good at, versus say, yeah, I know you're good at that, but let's do this instead because this fits my scheme and everything like that. Like, that's a big thing that like a lot of Saints players are like, oh, it can be like this. Like, they're just going to ask me to do the thing that I'm really good at doing. And so I think that right. And so I think that like, that's just part of what Brandon Staley's bringing to the table. That's part of, and I think the other thing that's really great for Chase Young too, is that I think for the first time in his career, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think for the first time in his career, he has a dedicated edge rushers coach with Jay Rodgers. He has somebody that's going to be communicating to him what to do as an edge rusher, as opposed to the mixed signals that sometimes come with a defensive line coach that's coaching both the interior and the edge rushers. And to where, things can get a little bit like, okay, we need you to do this, but we need you to do this. And the communication get a little weird and things like that. Now you have a position coach that is communicating to that position to say, this is your role, this is your responsibility. And I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of the role and responsibility for the edge rushers like Chase Young is get after the quarterback. Like, it's get off the block, make a tackle. Like, that's a lot of what the edge rusher responsibility is going to be. It's not necessarily trying to set up guys in the second level to do this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. Their job's going to be to get after the quarterback. And so I think that it just puts him in a better position when it comes to all that, to being able to be that guy again and live up to that, second overall selection. And here's the thing too, he needs to, like, you talk about the season outlook, like there's the point of what is he going to do, but there's also the point of what it is the team needs from him. That's a 3-year, $51 million extension worth up to $57 million. It's the biggest investment that they made all offseason. Justin Reed right behind, but biggest investment they made all offseason. So they need to be placing him as the number one edge rusher. They need to be treating him as the game changer. They need to be putting him out there as the playmaker and putting him in those positions. And he'll need to reciprocate that with production too. So some of it is like, oh, what a great opportunity for Chase Young. The other part of it is that the expectation should be high around what it is that the Saints are getting back for their investment.
He's not getting paid like this is an opportunity. He's getting paid like,
right.
This is one of the top 15 pass rushers in the NFL.
Right. Right.
And I think that's a good point and a big point. And again, I think it's exciting that he's only 26. He just signed this big deal. He is young. He came into the NFL at 21. So like all of these up and down rocky years that we talked about came in his early 20s. And now he's seemed to be settled into the NFL for the first time fully. And he's 26. So now the future's bright, I think, for Chase Young. And I think if the sacks come this year as in like 9+, I think no one's going to be complaining about the fact that they re-signed him. That was one of the biggest things I saw whenever you read like off-season grades. And people are like, man, the Saints gave Chase Young all this money. Like, do they know that he's not the player that he was whenever he got drafted? And I'm like,
do you?
Do you? And I think that there's a chance that he really could look like it. If he turned a couple of those pressures last year into sacks, no one would be complaining. And he probably would have made a lot more money, not in black and gold.
Yeah.
So
66 pressures?
Yeah.
66 pressures? Or was it more than that?
73.
That's something. There's a lot.
Well, it depends. I guess it depends.
Yeah, it depends on the site.
Next gen stats I know is 73. That
we'll go with that.
Well,
but that's a good.
The only website I use is whichever one supports my argument. So let's go with 73.
Oh my! I mean, that's
both
fair.
he and Granderson were top 20. I think Granderson was 17 in pressures. Pass rushes. In pressures. And so like if those guys can repeat that, but then also finish with more than 11 combined sacks in 2025, then I think like that's huge. And Carl Granderson was doing that like completely bulked up. Like he was like 280 or something like that last year. And right now he's listed at 261. And so now he's came into the league around like the mid 250s. And so like he's going to be back to where it is that he's doing. So there's the Chase Young part of it, but then there's can Carl Granderson be an effective bookend on the opposite side that, these guys elevate one another. The fact is that you have 2 edge rushers, 3 interior offensive linemen. When you send all those guys, you got one-on-ones all across the line when it comes to offensive line versus defensive line. And so they got, winning those one-on-ones would be huge.
Yeah. Carl Granderson took a little trip to Jason Pierre-Paul Island and then is not coming back to where he was before. And hopefully that can turn into more sacks, having that added, agility back.
Mm-hmm. It's just, it's one of those things. Like it's that same thing we were talking about earlier. Like, you can do what it is that you do well, or you can do this thing because it's what my scheme needs. And it was like, we need you to bulk up and change your body and change the way that you play and all these other things, because this is the mold of pass rusher in this system and everything like that. And it's just like, man, or speed, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah. Could these guys be, as good as, as productive maybe as like Khalil Mack was? He was a little bit later in his career with Brandon Staley. Like he wasn't like the same guy, but like, could he be like a little like,
17 and a half sacks.
Was that 17 and a half sacks?
Yeah, 17 and a half.
Please? I just take 10 right now. I'll take 10.
Never mind.
Yeah. I was just say maybe 17 maybe 17 and a half combined between Granderson and Young is better than 11. Like that would be good. You know what I mean?
I was thinking
3 of those are on third downs or something, like that's huge,
I was thinking more back to like 2022. Whenever he had 8 sacks.
8.5. Yeah.
8 sacks. But if you have the that 22 duo of him and Joey Bosa, and I just think that there's the potential, because like Carl Granderson has flashed. Like there are games where you go back in Carl Granderson's career and you're like, wow, is this guy a top 5 pass rusher in the NFL? Chase Young has, of course, everyone has had the hype of him being like, oh, this will be a top 5 pass rusher in the NFL. So it's all about, executing on that, and I think that they're going to be in a much better position this year than they were last year, even if there is some overall concern about how deep the pass rusher room is. At the top, I don't have any questions.
No. I credit Carl Granderson a lot with being an undrafted free agent that outlasted 2 first-round picks at his position, Marcus Davenport and Peyton Turner. Like, it means something. It means something.
Yeah, it means something to me that y'all listen to the Saints Squad. Thank you for listening to the Saints Squad. Check out me, Ross, John, and even Lance, who is still on the phone with his nice grandma. Check out our socials for the latest. We'll be right back here on this spot on Thursday, ready to talk more New Orleans Saints football. Until then, if you're not sick of them, be sure to make Ross Jackson and Locked On Saints your second listen of the day.